we will begin with She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, episode 2. Jen is fired from her job after she turns into She-Hulk and saves the rural jurors, some would say, from certain destruction. She has hard pressed to get a job until she is offered a position heading up a superhuman or superhero, whatever, legal team at an agency in which she has to appear in court and at work as She-Hulk. And her first case is to represent Emil Blonsky, the Abomination, played very capably by Tim Roth, obviously, from the Ed Norton Hulk movie from way back in the day at this point.
Way back.
For his parole hearing. And so she goes to meet Mr. Blonsky, expecting the Abomination. She gets Emil, Tim Roth. And then the stinger at the end of the episode, spoilers if you haven't watched it yet, so skip forward maybe 10 seconds, is him participating in the underground fighting ring that was shown in Shang-Chi. So connecting those dots. And there was a little bit of Bruce in this episode as well. I do think that with what we saw, this will probably be the last time we see Bruce in this show.
I do.
Yeah. So what did you think of episode 2?
I thought this is kind of more what we were expecting with this show, with like a more of, we're following the camera, the single shot, the lawyer kind of drama. Obviously, it's still Marvel, so it has to have
unfortunately
those elements. Well,
for better or worse.
For better or for worse, exactly. And so that it was a thing, she still broke the fourth wall, which we just know that's going to happen now. I mean, that's just going to be the thing with this because they did it in the comic books, whatever reason. But what I found out, what I really like about this show that I enjoy, is when she's just not She-Hulk. And like that, I find it like that, like her interaction with her paralegal, her interaction, with her family, stuff like that is just kind of fine and reminds me of like those legal shows back in the day, like a Boston Legal or
Ally McBeal. I was thinking
Ally McBeal, stuff like that, where it's just there's sometimes are just these kind of like completely nothing conversations that happen, and people have like real deal stresses in their life, and instead of hers being, this one, she loses her job. That's what happens in one of these like legal shows. Someone loses their job. The episode's about them losing their job, being bummed out, whatever. And then they get a new job by the end. And sometimes it's under shady reasons or something weird like blackmail or something like that could be involved or whatever. And in this case, it follows all of those, except that it's just that you must be She-Hulk. This is about superheroes. And here's the Abomination, which there's a good chance that some people had just never seen the Edward Norton Hulk and didn't even know that was like a thing. And it's very possible. And I thought, I was like, I've seen that movie, but I was just like, oh yeah, wow, that was a long time ago. So I like that aspect of it. What I don't really like is like it feels like every time she's She-Hulk, and it seems so forced. And so like we had to make this TV show. We had to do a She-Hulk character because it's like a woke TV show that breaks the fourth wall. And I really feel like this show could be way better if the She-Hulk idea was there, but not so overburied. And if it was really what we kind of joked around about it being like just a like A to Z standard legal drama, where maybe like half the show, 20 minutes of the show is her actually in a courtroom kicking ass, like doing things like that, having like a relationship or whatever. And then there's like 10 minutes. And I don't mean like, I shouldn't say like not the first 20 minutes, but 20 minutes of a 30-minute show, her doing her job. And then there's like 5 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever, of her just being She-Hulk. I think the show would do way better, at least right now. Now we're only 2 episodes in. This is 9 episodes, I believe.
Eight.
I think okay.
8, yeah.
So we're only a quarter away done, and things can definitely change. But for me, it has more. It shows that it has more potential than the first episode. But I'm still like, can we not have this be so forced? Make it maybe a little more natural into that.
No, you were right. It
That's
is
my
9. 9. I
okay.
apologize.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's just one of those things where I was like, is this I understand what the show is, but when Steve Rogers is Captain America, he's just Captain America. And so, sometimes he fights and it never seemed forced, or Tony being Iron Man, it never seemed forced. And this one just seems so like, well, you have to be She-Hulk in the courtroom. And I'm like, really? Like, this is how we're implementing it. So I thought that was just a little, to me, that just didn't work for me as well as I wanted it to. But I like the scene in her parents' house. Actually, like the scene in the end credits where she is carrying stuff. That's funny,
Yeah.
and I enjoy that. But it was just this weird mix of like that middle part just didn't jive for me as much. But we know that this show's going somewhere because of what had happened with the Abomination in the fighting scene, and at least we have something going.
Yeah. I just think I think personally I'm at an inflection point where I might just be done with Marvel, or at least on like a we've talked about this recently when they released their phase 5 and phase 6 schedule and stuff like that, that it's becoming a lifestyle choice. And I feel like, and it's not necessarily to do with She-Hulk per se, but I think that this is just kind of a microcosm of the way I feel right now about Marvel, which is it's just kind of like I'm just kind of over it. And that every now and again we'll get something cool and different and interesting, right? We got I thought Shang-Chi was great. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed Moon Knight, but I think that show was a perfect case of kind of like what you're saying here, where it wasn't forced that the superhero was there all the time. We barely saw Moon Knight.
Yeah.
It was that battle between the multiple versions of Oscar Isaac. And I thought that it was cool and different. But like the more I think about the Thor movie, I was just, are we just at this point pretending and going through the motions? Because outside of Spider-Man and I would say Shang-Chi, these movies have not been good. And it's like we talked about it with the phases, that I felt like that they were trying to, artificially raise the level of hype. And I think that a big problem is because of the fact that we're getting so deep into the catalog of characters that we're just being bludgeoned over the head with characters that nobody cares about. And I said it a couple weeks ago that I feel like that they are trying to convince us that Crystal Light is Kool-Aid. And that's what this show feels like to me, is that it's just, well, you like Hulk, so how about a little She-Hulk? And it's like, well, no, I don't want that. I want Hulk. I don't want Ironheart in Black Panther 2. I want Iron Man. I don't want Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Sam and Bucky, they've been there for the ride, but I want Chris Evans. And
Right.
it's the point now where I feel like they're just serving us like the MCU through the Infinity Saga was that 5-star steakhouse. And you're going to get something good, whether it's the strip or the fillet or whatever, and whatever's on the side, you're going to get that. What you're going to get is good. And now that we're kind of past that point, I feel like the MCU is now just like Eden Park. and they have some of everything, but none of it's good. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, this is, and I agree with you in this because, and you and I are having just like a a conversation, text conversation about. I'm definitely burned out on it. I mean, I will definitely say that. I know that's very millennial to say, like you're burned out on something,
Well,
but
it's just fatigue. It's just Marvel
it's
fatigue.
just
It's just
and
being run into the ground.
because I was thinking about this because I was like, well, is this because we have the podcast, so I'm like doing this because of the pod? It's like, well, I would still watch these things, and I just wouldn't have to talk about it, and
Yeah.
that would be the biggest difference. So I don't think that is a big difference. I think it's like I still would consume it, and I thought about this while watching this today. My thing was, let's say that at the end of the Infinity Saga, instead of Captain America getting old, instead of Tony Stark dying, they just are heroes. And we just continue on this pathway. Maybe Black Widow still ends up dying or whatever, but we are still on this pathway with Captain America and Iron Man as Chris Evans, as Robert Downey Jr. And let's say we do that for 4 more years. And this is the thing about all these characters is all these phases we get with like the big movies. Guess who's involved in all those in the comic book? Iron Man and Steve Rogers Captain America. So it's like in a way, and I know that that's different. And like these actors, they want to do, they want to get away from it too because they probably get burned out. I completely understand that, but I oft wonder if I would have, knowing that they wanted to continue to do movies, would have been better for all of us consuming it if they just kept them as heroes. They defeat Thanos, and we just get 3 more big, 3 more big Avengers movies, maybe like 1 Iron Man movie in between, 1 Captain America movie in between, and then we end it there. And we just we're done with it. Like we do 4 more years because I agree with you, that was so good. And I'm not saying they would have matched that, but all I'm saying is it would have given us just a little bit more of both of those characters, which, I mean, they based a comic book, they based that movie Civil War off these two for a reason. And I think that might have been the route to go, and then do what we've said, just end it. And that's a lot of speculation, a lot of different things. But I just think that every one of us, including MCU itself, would have been better served just saying, Chris Evans, we'll give you, 50%, something ridiculous, like an outrageous number, just to keep him as Captain America. Give Robert Downey Jr. A little bit more because that's just the way that works, just to keep him along for let's say 4 more years. And we're gonna bang out some Avengers movies. We're gonna do secret, whatever you want to do, Secret Wars, but we need to keep this group together because we don't know what we're doing, because we're starting to see that now, that maybe they don't know what they're doing, and it makes me a little nervous.
Well, I think that they're trying new things, but I think that trying new things here is kind of like how Madden tries new things. And at the end of the day, it's still just Madden. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And that's kind of as good. And we said this at the time, as good as Shang-Chi was, as much as I liked it, they very, very nearly ruined a perfectly good kung fu movie by turning it into a Marvel movie. And I get the same vibe from this show, as we'll try to maybe bring it back towards the show, is like you said, we're going to get the expectation for what they showed us is it's going to kind of be like a courtroom drama sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it's still Marvel. And so it has to have those sort of cheesy over the top jokes and the cringy dialogue at times, and the questionable CGI of action figures running into each other. So as much as they want to say, okay, this is a new, fresh idea, at the end of the day, it's still just Madden. It's still just a football game. It's been the
Mhm.
same game for the last 27 years. And they might add a feature here or a feature there or a mode here or a mode there. And there's the cards and whatever. But at the end of the day, it's still Madden, and R2's still juke right and L2's still juke left. And that's how Marvel is at this point, where it's like, this has a lot of potential. They're going to ruin that potential by making it a Marvel thing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where I'm at. And like, that's part of why I keep going back to Moon Knight, where it's saying like, Moon Knight was so special because you have a tremendous actor in Oscar Isaac, and he's playing this role of these split personalities in such a way that it kind of outshined all the other stuff.
Right.
It the Marvelness of it didn't take away from how special that show was. And then to then turn around and see Miss Marvel, and Miss Marvel is like the highest rated Rotten Tomato Marvel show so far, which is just bonkers to me. And so I think the formula is, for better or worse, is to just kind of do what they do best and try to mix old characters with new characters. And I think that that's why Hawkeye was so successful. I think that that's, to us anyway, why we
Right.
really liked it. And I think that, you know, the first episode of She-Hulk had that same panache, because it was, okay, we're going to introduce a new character, but we're also going to ease that sort of onto you by also giving you Bruce. I'm interested to see where this goes. I do think that there's a story here.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think it can play out really well, but I just feel like that sort of courtroom dramedy that we were like wink wink promised isn't really going to be there, and it's just going to be Madden. It's just going to be Madden.
And yeah, I think you're right, Brenton. I just, sorry about it. I just think you're right. I think that's, we expect more because at one point we did get more, and now we don't, and
right.
That's rough.
Well, it's kind of like when Ant-Man came out, and Ant-Man didn't set the world on fire, but it was like, oh, cool, a Marvel movie that's just basically a straight comedy because you have a comedic actor in the starring role with Paul Rudd, right? And then at the same time with, oh, cool, they're doing Spider-Man and he actually looks like a teenager instead of Tobey Maguire, who looks like he's 28 playing an 18-year-old, right? And you know, the team up movie's awesome, whatever. And then when they turned Thor on its head with Ragnarok, all great stuff because we were expanding on these things. But now it's just the same stuff with a different coat of paint at this point.
Yeah.
And it's just such a barrage of things all the time. And I do think the part of like COVID played a big part of that, because you know, the hose got coiled up and then you got to let it go at some point and all the water is going to come rushing out. Right. Yeah. And so I do think that if they could have had it differently, there would have been way more space between a lot of these things, a lot of them, especially the movies. But with, you know, the theater shutdown being what it was and trying to hold things as long as possible so that they would make money or at least make their money back, I do think that things got pretty unfairly bunched up on each other. I mean, the reality of it is that Shang-Chi was September, I think.
Yeah.
And by the time Black Panther rolls around in like a span of 15 months, we'll have gotten Shang-Chi, Eternals, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Thor, Black Panther, 6 movies and however many shows. It's a lot. And you know, I just think that the best thing for them to do realistically would be to just go away for a while, but that's not going to happen. And I do think that Disney as an entity kind of has a history of running things into the ground like this. I think the perfect example is like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And how they took something pretty special with the Black Pearl and even Dead Man's Chest and just fucking ruined it over time. And I think that unfortunately that's kind of the pattern that we're seeing here with Marvel and to another extent maybe Star Wars, but yeah, I don't know. It's just at some
I
point
think it.
a movie's just going to suck so much it's going to be like I'm done.
I think what's going to happen. I think what needs to happen is there needs to be, and I'm not rooting for this, but there needs to be a bomb. A movie just makes I know it sounds weird, but a movie just makes $500 million. Like people just like say this is bad. We don't like it. I don't think that'll ever happen.
Who the hell wants to see Thunderbolts? Who the hell wants to see? We've already done Fantastic Four. It's already failed twice.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like some of these other things. I'll be honest with you. You know what I think it will? What I think it'll be. What the one the bombs will be. I think it'll be Captain America. I think it'll be the Anthony Mackie led Captain America. I think it will tank.
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
I think that'll be the one.
Because I think, I mean, that wouldn't shock me at all, really.
Because people are going to see, or I'll tell you what the Marvels. I think those are your two. Those are they're going to bomb. I think they'll bomb both of them. I think the Marvels will really bomb. Actually, that's probably my number one pick.
This is my question: what would designate a bomb? Less than 800 million.
Well, okay. I don't have
in this day and
numbers.
I'm just saying based on what we know. I just like one of those things.
Like Uncharted, I think Uncharted made 300 million. And that was a success for Sony. They made their money back. It was still pandemic time. I think that's what the worldwide gross was. But I think anything under 600 million for Marvel, it would be considered a failure. And I know Eternals didn't do strong, but that had the excuse of the pandemic. Yeah. Because none of those movies did super well. Black Widow didn't do great theatrically. Shang-Chi didn't do great theatrically in terms of finances. The Eternals did not do well, and then Spider-Man was where things kind of turned.
Yeah, but said, screw it, it's Spider-Man.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that like they'll always have Spider-Man, and I think when the X-Men come, they'll be big. But yeah, I just like I look forward
French
and less. Yeah. Oh, the French. I look forward to these shows less and less with each passing show. Like I was all aboard the hype train for WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Loki. And then after Loki, I was like, ooh, well, maybe not.
Right.
And then we got a break and we got Moon Knight and it was great. But then Miss Marvel kind of wasn't super great to me. So, but that's just one man's opinion.
I'm agreeing with you on that. I will say, like, I just don't have the enthusiasm, and that there's probably a lot of different things, at hand on that. But for me, it's just I don't have the enthusiasm to go on with it. I'm older, but I'm not like it's not significant. It wasn't that long ago that Infinity War, Endgame happened, and I was stoked. I mean, like that's the thing, like. As stoked as I've ever been for something. And it's like, I just don't have that in me right now. And maybe that'll change. Maybe something will happen. I'll be like, okay, we're back. But I think it has a lot to mend. I think much more than they even envisioned.
Yeah. But this has been going on. I mean, it's Iron Man. The first Iron Man was May 2nd, 2008.
Yep.
And so for reference, I was... God, I don't even know. 20.
I was 23. That was my 23rd birthday.
24. I was 24, and I'm about to be 38.
Yeah.
So this is, and that's what I mean. It's like just at some point, just let it go. Go away for a while. Go away, and then come back. Sort it out.
Maybe after this last phase that they've announced, they'll go away for a little bit.
We'll see. That's in. Like, when did you say Kang Dynasty comes out on
3 years? Because it'll be 40.
Birthday?
I'll be 40. Yep.
Yeah. So then there's like another 6 months after that is the last whatever Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's just the last Avengers movie. And I mean that because I love the Infinity Saga so much that I just don't want to see it tainted by bullshit. And unfortunately, I do
Right.
think that that's the direction that we're headed in.
Good.
But She-Hulk.
She-Hulk. They always evolve, but how can they not? I mean, that's just the way it is sometimes.
Yeah. I'm still oddly attracted to her though, as She-Hulk. I want to see you don't like She-Hulk. I would like to see more She-Hulk. I would like it to be only She-Hulk.
I guess the thing is, if they just presented it as She-Hulk and not a lawyer show, then I would have been like, just have her kick ass. But now that and like I said, I'm a courtroom drama guy. So,
well, why can't she be She-Hulk in the courtroom?
I mean, it just seemed forced. It's like you have to be.
Well,
like,
it is forced.
But if she was just,
it's because of Madden.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm just saying that just, it was so forced feeling. But that, I get it. It's just, it seems a little but I digress. We're still watching the show, and I still think the show has potential.
So do I, and it's just the overarching.
Right, it's the overarching thing
for me, but we will move on.